All right, Joel Gausten here from joelgausten.com. As you can already tell, I still have my semi-annual voice thing happening, but who needs a good voice for a podcast anyway? And in any event, you don't come to listen to me, you come here to listen to my guests. For this conversation and continuing my New Jersey themed series here, I'm going to bounce down to New Brunswick via Florida and welcome uh, a veteran of New Brunswick music and otherwise, Mr. Doug Vizthum. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on? I'm ready to rock here. As
Excellent,
always,
excellent,
I've been rocking all day. I actually got done recording a bunch of stuff today too. One of my
cool.
songs, I decided that I wanted to put a middle in it, and I recorded the middle part, and it came out like exactly. I was like kind of surprised it came out as well as it did. It was really good. So I'm like pretty happy. I'm finally getting this record done that I'm working on. So I'm glad about that, you know.
Excellent. And we have a lot to talk about. You have really one of the most varied histories of any guest I've had on so far. So we got a lot of things to dive into. But first and foremost, I actually saw one of your old singers last night, Mr. Schwartzman.
Oh, Dave. Yeah, man. He's actually like closer to me than anybody because he's over in Orlando.
Right.
Uh, he's in the over there by Orlando where it's a little bit more progressive. I'm in the part of Florida that's like, that's really backwards. Anyway, every dimwit that ever drove a motorcycle down to Daytona, is like, hey, this place is really great. Let's stay here. So this is like half the people down here drive motorcycles. The other part are NASCAR people. And then, and then there's just like all kinds of weird fringe people that kind of just hide from all the nuts. So it's what it is. It's Weirdoville. That's all I can say. It's entertaining. People are like, "How could you live there?" I'm like, it's entertaining. I mean, it's just like, believe me, this record that I did or I'm doing, it writes itself. It's so ridiculous. I mean, there's like literally there's like I read in the paper and I see stuff and I'm like, look at this. There's a place called Meth Island that's right by my house. It's a little island off of the Halifax River. They dubbed it Meth Island. These people went over there and like put up tree houses and put trampolines over there. And they dubbed it Meth Island. And the cops finally shut them down and got rid of it. And the cops were like, actually, it's pretty cool. So I guess it just got the handle of Meth Island, which I like ran with. I'm like, dude, Meth Island sounds like a great place to go. So we're gonna go to Meth Island. I got that. It's just like Florida. Florida is its own thing. You know what I mean? It's like I'm reading in the paper these chicks outside of they have Coyote Ugly over in Daytona Beach, and these drunk girls are throwing a real live baby around. Broke the kid's arm. They're like throwing the kid around. You can't make this stuff up. It's just like this is what is going on here. It's so nuts. There's always like gunshots and people hitting the ground. It's like it's the Hope and Carry State. They're like it's like Yosemite Sam around every corner. So,
How'd you end up down there?
my wife wanted to be closer to her daughter because her daughter's down here. And I was like, at that point, and I was kind of like, why not? Let's do it. I mean, I ended up being, a remote employee at my job, and I work from home. So I was like, all right, let's pack up. I asked my job, is it all right if I'm a remote employee? Can I move to Florida? And they're like, yeah. So I was like, okay. It's like a mile and a half from the beach. It's kind of a no-brainer, you know what I mean? Even though it's probably a no-brainer in the end of the situation, just because when the water rises up, we're gonna be floating away. But it seemed like a good idea at the time, and as time has gone on, it gets like I'm looking around at these nuts, and we're not going anywhere anyway. It's just there's no way we're moving anywhere again. Maybe a little bit more north out of here, but I don't see us moving anytime in the near future. I've just become, I'm entertained by most of it. So it really, the only thing it's like when it comes time to eat, it's like I would prefer to be able to get a real good food somewhere. And it's like the restaurants leave a lot to be desired. Everything's way more expensive because I guess you're by the beach. I don't know if that's why, but it's very expensive here, and but I'm here.
Now, were you a native of New Jersey?
Oh yeah, no, I lived there my whole life. So it's so bizarre that after 60 years I packed up and left. But, as good a time as any, you know what I mean? It's just like I would have liked to have stayed, but they kind of priced it out. And then when I got here, they're pricing me out here too. So you can't win, It's like one of those things where it was supposed to be cheaper coming down here and it really isn't. So, but I'm like, I put the brakes on it. I'm like, I'm not going again. And, I'm staying here. I feel, I made this move, man. It's like, that's enough. I'm not moving everybody and everything out of here again. Not if I can help it. So, I mean, the only thing is when I moved down here is like I was hoping that I would be able to hook up with some musicians down here. What happened was I moved here and then everybody's in a cover band here. Like this area is just backwards. It's a backwards place. I can put up with the fact it's backwards, and there are like nice people here. I mean, there are good people, but it's just not like. And if I really wanted to, I probably could go to Orlando and probably find somebody an hour away. But I'm at the point I don't feel like driving an hour and stuff. And then I started realizing I could do all this stuff by myself in my room and do not have to go anywhere and, record and I'm doing it like I'm purposely doing this as crazy as possible, which means I'm using the cheapest thing you could do. I'm using Audacity of all things. Like, I'm not using Pro Tools. I'm not using Ableton. I actually have Ableton. I decided that I'm going to do it with Audacity because it's free. And I'm using like this thing. It's like Focusrite. It's like a two input like computer interface. That's how I record with it. I have Shure 58s. I have this Audio Technica mic, which is it cost me $100. You know what I mean? It's like I'm doing, I'm the only thing that kind of has messed me up is drums. Um, I started off by taking, drum sounds off of records, almost doing it like a rap, you know what I mean? And, but not rap because I'm not like doing that whole thing. It's not me. It's not what I would do. So I was using drums and then I found this company named Yurt Rock that makes drum loops and I started using their loops. And I'm trying to do everything as cheaply as possible on purpose, just so I could say, you can do this. You can do this. Anybody can do this. You know what I mean? You know what? It's like I could not, I have to create. There's no way I cannot make music somehow. So this made it so I can do it. There's only one person that's contributed anything, like live besides me, and that's Danny from Cyanamid. I went up to Jersey and I recorded him. I recorded a vocal for him. It came out great. I mean, he did everything in one take, just like you knew Danny would do. Because I don't know, are you familiar with Cyanamid at all?
Yeah, let me do a very quick public service announcement.
Yes.
Danny, answer my texts and come on this show.
Yeah, yeah. Danny, Danny picks up my calls and stuff because like I've known Danny, I've known Danny for 45 years or something ridiculous. I've known Danny forever, and yeah, he's something else. He's a funny guy, very attuned with nature. He's a good person in general. You know what I mean? It's funny, like him and Kaprowski get along great too, which is really funny. It's just like, they're perfect together. They're like the dynamic duo, those two, when they get together. They came out to a show one time and I was just like, this is the best. Like watching those two interact was so funny. Yeah, it was very cool. It's always fun, particularly with Danny. Danny's one of a kind, man. And that's why I'm so glad I captured that on that thing. He hasn't done anything since Cyanamid. I mean, and I'm looking after I get done with this solo project, the two things I'm looking at doing more or less. I'm doing a project with him. It's just me and him. I'm going to give him music. He's going to do whatever he needs to do over the top of it, like he's always done with Cyanamid. It's so easy. I mean, you can just let him loose. He's like, he can do stuff like off the cuff. He's great at it. I'm doing that, and I'm hoping to do another like doing. I want to do a please use demo and see if anybody would be interested in actually putting it out. I think I got two great songs, and I got a project that I really want to get done. Is called "Wish You Were Here," and basically it's about Decolator. I don't know if you've ever read about Decolator. He's I think that's right. I remember in the Dave interview you were saying you had an interaction with him because he guess he was your editor at
Yeah,
the East Coast Rocker Aquarian.
yeah.
Oh God. Imagine him in any kind of power.
It
Oh
was it was
God,
my
Decolator.
it was a brief encounter and a very intense one.
Oh,
Where's
Repo
that
Man was
article?
always intense.
Well, let's break it down for the people who are watching who are new to your history. But let's start in the present, because you
Okay.
made mention about your current project,
Yes.
which is called the Slugger, based
Yes.
on your nickname, your longtime nickname. Uh,
Hmm.
Starting first with the music, because you were kind enough to send me some of it, and I love it, man.
Oh, cool.
I'm really
I'm glad
digging
you
it.
dig it.
Yeah, it's I mean the closest band I can compare it to off the top of my head, it gives me vibes of like the Butthole Surfers at their peak.
Oh, that's great.
That's what I'm getting at,
Believe
man.
me. I mean, it's not weird like that, but it's like eclectic and I
Yeah,
mean, I'm trying to do something a little bit different but I'm also trying to keep that vibe, like that whole Florida vibe. Since I'm doing a record about it, you know what I mean? I figured if I'm gonna do it, just get, I mean, for the most part, I think, slide guitar on almost every song, just to make sure. I have one punk song that I didn't send over to you yet that I'm just about finished with. I got to put lead vocals on it. That one, because like I noticed everybody down here likes pop punk, and for whatever reason, and I decided I'm gonna like make a pop punk song that those people will be like, holy shit, listen to this. And then when they start hearing what the fuck I'm singing, they're gonna be like, it's called 98 Degrees because it's about like the Daytona Beach nightlife, which is like I really don't know much about the Daytona Beach nightlife unless and pretty much people tell me what's going on over there. I don't really go. I'm not going hanging out in Daytona Beach. First off, I don't drink, so I'm not going out partying and stuff. Um, you know, it's like it's crazy. It's just the people over there are nuts. There's always people pulling out guns. Like I said about the two girls throwing the baby around, two drunk chicks throwing a baby, broke the kid's arm. I don't know who gave these girls this kid what's going on, but they're hanging outside of a bar. They're underage. They're throwing a kid around and they're drunk. So this is Florida. So I have that song, and I'm like writing a bunch of other. I got another one that's coming up called Water World about how like the whole place is going to go underwater, And I have a lot of like other ones like the one about Monkey Jungle. I don't know if anybody has ever gone to Florida in a vacation style thing, but there's a place near Miami called Monkey Jungle. And their tagline is, "You're in the cage and the monkeys run free." So I recorded that song. Had Danny do the thing on it. Danny was like, I'm not sure what I should do here. And I was like, Danny, here's the premise. Monkey Jungle's a place where you're in the cage and the monkeys run free. And he was like, I got it. And immediately just did it off the cuff, one take, the whole thing. I think one time he overshot and I took it and I cut it, put it in here, and had him overdub over the top of that, and it worked great. So, and that's the thing is I've gotten to the point now with, with cutting and pasting stuff out. I could fix things. I mean, I can do everything. I could do anything I want to do, and I've like grafted stuff in. I mean, that song's got like so many different like little samples on it. I mean, I'm trying to think of the sample. The main sample is the Lee Dorsey drum beat from "Get Out of My Life, Woman." Don't come look at me for royalties. I mean, you're not getting any money out of me. Good luck. I have that on it. I have that part from Moby Grape, Omaha, the backwards thing that goes. That's in it, and it's cool because it's in stereo, so it's going from channel to channel. I have that. I have like that song "Last Night" by the Barkays or the Marquez. Sorry, it's like an old Stax song.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Well, I took that horn part. That's in it. I have like the funny thing is like I took a Lunar Ensemble song, and there was like a thing that Dave Drywitz, like Dave Drywitz, who plays bass in Ween, and he's in Instant Death. I've known Dave forever, and he recorded like when we were recording that record, he put this horn on it, and I took the horn and took it and put it in there. It's grafted in there with Miles Davis. So I do like I did a lot of sampling and stuff, which is, I kind of embraced more modern sound just because of I'm doing this anyway. So, and people that I've talked to are basically like, wow, it's pretty modern sounding. It sounds like it's almost like in tune with what's happening in popular music. Not that I would know because I don't listen to it. I listen to whatever I listen to, and I do get stuck listening to rap music sometimes with some other things that I do. Like I have a side job and I got to listen to nonsense, and there, I listen to whatever. But I mean, some of that stuff's good too, and I get ideas from that. I mean, I get ideas from anything. I listen to music constantly. That's why, like when hardcore kind of petered out and I started just expanding back to what I was or before, because I always listened to all different kinds of music. And then when hardcore came in, I was just like, fuck this is all I'm listening to now. I don't give a shit. And I'll still listen to some stuff, but for the most part, I fucking for about a year or 2 years, I was just like, forget it. And then after that, I went back to listening to everything. I used to put 45s on the Corp Tavern jukebox, so I would be rifling through like boxes and boxes of 45s, and I'd find all different stuff. I'd be like, "What's this? Well, it's $1. What the fuck? I'll take a chance." Sounds cool. Believe me, I got like almost every Funkadelic record on Westbound doing that for $1 because I found them in the bins, and I'm like, I'll take it. James Brown, every James Brown record with the fucking little James Brown head. I love those records. Those 45s with the James Brown head. That was good. But that's I know I'm up on a tangent. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joel. Let's go. Let's get back on track.
Well, where are you in terms of completing the current project and putting it out in whatever?
Um, I'm about I'm about 2 songs away. I want to get 2 more songs. I want a 10 song record. Is really what I want. I don't want to put out like just something. I want to make it a full length record. I can do it. I have the time. And the thing that I love about recording from home is that I have the time to do whatever I want. And I have the time to get it the way I want it to. Like today, I went back. Some of the stuff I sent you, I've already fixed. I've changed it. I go back. Like that one song, I'm Dying Here. I wrote a little middle thing for it because I always felt it was just a little too short. But I put this middle thing in it, and I got the idea today, and I was just like, I put it on. I recorded it all today, and I actually it's funny because it's just instrumental. It's like two acoustic guitars, one acoustic slide, and at the end it's just like it's a kind of it's almost like a instrumental part of the other break. And then at the end of it, I just had like this feedback thing going, and then all I hear is like this thing at the end of it, like kind of like you just died, and then it goes into the end part of the song. So I mean, I just like go and I love the idea that I can just go back because I always hated going in the studio, and then you get out of the studio and you're like, I don't like this. This sounds fucked up. Like now I can't fix it unless I spent the fucking $200. You know, fuck this. You know, I always hated that. So now I can get the songs the way I want them. It takes a little time, but I got all the time in the world down here for the most part, you know, at least until I'm dead. Anyway, you know, it's like that's what I love about this project is I can really take my time and get it done right. And I'm like, and then the thing is, you know, I also have I have mastering software. So what I sent you is already mastered and done. You know what I mean? It's mixed and mastered. I go back and I tweak things a little bit, and I find other things that I'm like, I want to fix this. I want to do this. But it's good. I have the time to do it. I set a deadline for myself for like, I'd like to get it done by August if possible. Two more songs shouldn't be that hard. I mean, I already have like ideas like that one Mortar World song, which I already have I already have the drum track already done. I just have to figure out what I want to do instrumentally over the top of it. And then I have another song which is probably going to be more acoustic or maybe even country style, and that's about Eileen Wernoff, the serial killer. She's from here. She is from here. So one day I'm reading the paper and I'm like, once again, reading the paper, and it says, hey, it's the anniversary of her getting captured in Fort Orange, where I live. And I'm like, what? And I start reading it, and it says, like, this place, the last resort, is where she got caught. And I'm thinking to myself, now I've driven by that place probably about 50 times. It's like looks like it would be the last resort for a bar that I would stop in for sure. It looks like a bomb hit the front of it. But sure enough, that's where she was arrested. So I want to write a song about that because I watched the movie again and I'm just like, it's really messed up, and it's her whole story is messed up. I mean, she was abused badly, but that's it doesn't give you a right to kill people. But if those people did stuff to her too, which you said they did, you don't know the truth. You don't know. But the thing is, she was a damaged individual when you come down to it. And at the bottom, like the end of the day, she's just a damaged person that got into this situation. And, there's a lot of angles to write a song about, and I probably want I'll take some time writing, not too much because I want to get this done. I'd like to get it done because I want to move on to the next projects. I particularly like to do the thing with Danny and then the Pleased Youth thing, and then anything after that, But it's been, like it's been really good. It's been really good doing this on my own. It feels really good that I did all this. I feel like I've accomplished a lot, because I just basically set about doing it. I was like, no one's coming to the rescue to help me here. So, and I've always written, majority of the stuff that I've done, I've written all the lyrics for sure, and then, like Bad Karma, me and Tom wrote a lot of stuff separately, because Bad Karma really was the one band I was in for a long, long time. Um, you gotta look at Pleased Youth. I was in Pleased Youth for 2 years,
Mm.
3 years at the most. And
Well,
then,
let me
but Bad Karma I was in for a long, long time. It was like over 10 years. And Mr. Payday, I was in Mr. Payday for like a long time. I got more in the habit of writing the music for that, even though it's always been I always been democratic with everybody. I don't say, hey, play this. I might, I have basically said, if you could do this, like, Caroline was always good to work with, the keyboard player. because I could go to her and say, if can you do this? And she'd be like, yeah, sure. And she always came up with her own vocal things. So, and Tom and Nikki always were, you know, pretty democratic. I was always democratic, whatever they came up with, drums and bass. Same thing with Bad Karma when it was Tom and Wally, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's doing this on my own is a whole other bag. It's, at the end of the day, I don't have to hear anybody say, I don't like this, I don't want to do this. No, I'm doing it. It's my song and I'm doing it now. So I can do it. I can do whatever I want. And it's the freedom is very overwhelming. It's great.
Let's get into Pleased Youth. But
Okay.
before we get into the old days,
Yes.
tell me more about this Pleased Youth demo that you're looking into and working on currently.
Yeah, I already did like a real basic demo of two of the songs. One of them is one I've had for a long time, and it's called Still Assholes After All These Years. So, it was a play on that George Harrison song, All Those Years Ago. Except it's like, pleased youth being jerk offs, and basically saying, we're still assholes. Hide your record collection. Not that any of us would steal anything like that, but to bring Decolator back, and it's all about Decolator in the end of the day. That's like the closer of the record. I have another song called The World is Your Ashtray. And that was always a Paul line. And the world is my ashtray. So, or that's what it is. That's the world is my ashtray. Sorry. But I wrote that one for Decolator, and there's some other stuff that we had that I wanted to do on it. Um, I know that it was me, Keith, and this guy named Kevin Highland. I just demoed it just to try to make it easier for Andy and Greg, just to give them something to work with. This way we didn't have to sit there and do it because like, Kevin had a whole studio set up there, like he had a little Zoom recorder. So we recorded stuff, and actually, I'm gonna probably embellish on his. He sent me over the Audacity track, so I'm gonna try to fatten up the demo a little bit because he's got the drums on it already. I don't want to have to do like I don't want to have to find drums down here, or who knows? Maybe I'll even ask Dave. Hey, Dave, you think you can give me a hand? I'd love to have, that'd be nice to have, like somebody actually play the drums on it and get it done right. Kevin did a good job on it though, so I'll probably take those demos. I'm gonna at least do two of the songs just to we have a demo to pass around and see if anybody would be interested. If I wrote a whole record, which I have a skeleton of already, I have like, I had a bunch of songs that I had written already that I didn't record that I'm kind of like working on it, but I'll go full bore on that after this gets done because this took precedent. Once I started doing this, I was like, I got to get this done. I want this project is near and dear to me just because it's all me in the end of the day. It's all stuff that I've done. So in the end of the day, there you go. I said the end of the day four times. There you go. Yeah, I've covered the base on that now.
Cool. Well, Pleased Youth, um, certainly an early New Jersey hardcore band, part of that whole wave of like AOD, Morning Noise, Bedlam, that whole sort of crowd by our records. Uh,
Mhm.
I've got
Yeah,
Chris.
they were a little earlier than we are because I think
Yeah.
NJF was more around the time that AOD was like, really starting to move. And then like, when NJF like kind of fell apart, at the end, because I guess their drummer Chris left. So when Chris left, like they were kind of like in limbo. They didn't have another drummer. So I happened to just know Paul from the Court Tavern. I went to see NJF. They played the Court somehow. I don't know how. Those guys were all underage. Probably because we let everybody in underage. Back in the day, earlier on. They can't come back to us anymore now because what are they going to go prosecute Bob? Bob's dead now, unfortunately. So, it's like I can say whatever I want to about the Court, but back in those days, we got away with a lot more of having people underage and stuff. And, Decolator used to go there and hang out with me all the time. He just missed the cutoff because there was like that 18 that staggered. You went from 18 to 21, and every year it went up, boom, boom, boom. And he missed it by like 1 or 2 years. He got screwed. He had to wait the full time, but it never really did because he would come in the bar anyway because I got him in. I got him in the bar back in, even after the NJF thing. He never really hung out at the court until after that. Because after me and him started, I met him and he was like, he ended up living around the block from me, go figure. So like Paul literally lived the block around the block from me. I was living in an apartment complex, and Paul had like, the palatial estate over there in North Brunswick, where his parents' house. So, he was like, come over to my house and hang out. So I'd go over his house. And, what struck me is when you walked in his room, he had like posters. He had like every punk rock poster you can imagine, but he also had numbers for every hardcore guy in the country on his wall. He had phone numbers for everybody. He had like Ian McKay, like all these people. And I was just like, oh, this guy is like kind of like a mover and shaker here. And I mean, I was into punk rock before, and I mean, uh, I was like into punk rock before, and was getting back. I got into hardcore probably about like around the same time that I saw NJF. I got into hardcore just a little late. Um, but I'd say it's around 82, late 82. And then I started hanging out with Declan, and we started, like playing guitars together because he didn't have anything going on, and he wanted to do something. He wanted to actually bring back NJF, and he was going to recruit me into NJF, which was kind of it was a different thing, for me. I had to learn how to play completely different, because I was always kind of like a slower punk guy, or I knew how to play slide guitar. I knew how to do all that stuff already. I mean, yeah, I definitely knew how to. I had grew up playing regular rock and roll, so I knew all that stuff. So playing in a hardcore band was like completely different. Playing thrash particularly. So I learned it. I would go in over his house and we practiced and played, and we were gonna get it together. Eventually, we were gonna do NJF, and it was like me, Paul, Harpo, Andy, and Danny Detention from Detention, Danny Shields. And we tried practicing, I think, at Shields Gym one time, and it just didn't really, it sounded good. The band sounded good, but Harpo was distracted. And I think that was after that, Harpo like said, listen, I can't do this. I'm joining the Navy. So he joined the Navy, and then we decided to go forward with a new band. And then Danny was decided, like, you're fighting with everybody here, because Decolator, was fighting with everybody. I was fighting with TMA. It was like a whole thing. And the funny thing is, I ended up becoming very good friends with the TMA guys later. But at one point or another, I was fighting with them. So he was like, he was friends with TMA. So he was like, I don't want to get in the middle of this shit. So he basically bailed on us.
Who's
So
TMA? Who's TMA?
TMA, you never heard TMA? They were like a first generation hardcore band. They're
Can't
from
say.
Brunswick. Yeah, they're pretty. They had a whole record out. They did a couple records actually. They had that album, What's for Dinner. They're on the third hardcore con too.
Okay.
The hardcore takes over. They're on that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was
and
one of this.
and it's funny because I'm like friendly with I'm really friendly with Dave. Dave was the one I was always fighting with, which was dumb anyway. It was just dumb shit. And and I became very good friends with Mike Demko, who was a guitar player. He's a great guy. But as it ended up, so Danny split, and then somehow we met Greg Walker, or they ended up being the drummer. So we met Greg, and Greg was like, we can practice at my house. So we used to go practice. We used to drive up to Union and practice there, and it was pretty easy because it was between everybody. You know what I mean? It made it simpler. It made it simple to do it. even though we had to drive all the way up there. It wasn't, the other guys, came down from Clifton or from Fairlawn. So we met up, and plus it was free rehearsal, so we're not arguing. So we ended up practicing there for quite a while, and then it gelled and we started playing. And then next thing you knew, we were gigging. We started our first gig was April 1st, 1984, opening for DRI at the Court Tavern, which we booked. Me and Paul decided we were going to start booking hardcore shows. So the funny thing was I had gotten thrown out of the Court Tavern, literally thrown out of the Court Tavern head first, out the front door and told not to come back. As a matter of fact, I was out in the parking lot and I got beat by the cops because I had a mohawk and I was like completely nuts. And the cops came and they beat me like it was Vietnam. And I ended up in the cooler. So I ended up going downtown, and my sister had to get me out of jail. She was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" It's like, "These cops beat the shit out of me. Look at my fucking face." So I got thrown out of the court and I wasn't allowed back. So I was in purgatory. I was over sitting at the Melody, which I don't know if you remember, you don't ever heard of the Melody.
Sure,
Melody
quite.
is a dumpy pickup bar over on the other side of town. I got stuck there. Everybody loves the Melody. I don't care about the Melody. I mean, it was nice hanging out with Matt Pinfield once in a while. Matt was always a genuinely nice guy. He used to hang at the court too, and that was a whole other thing. But I got along good with Matt, so it wasn't. I ended up there for a while, and then Declator was like, "Let's book shows. Can you think we can get it in the Court Tavern?" I'm like, "Well, I'll go to Bobby." I'm like, "Hey, Bob, you think you can let me back in and let me book all age hardcore shows?" He's like, "Yeah, okay, sure, no problem. Let me back." I didn't even have to write. I didn't even have to write an essay like Declator had to get back in, which was another great moment in Declator history. So I got back in there and immediately started booking hardcore bands, and we booked like JFA, the Dicks, Heart Attack. We booked a lot of bands. The Circle Jerks, the Butthole Surfers. We booked a lot of bands. Um, and it was cool. And that was our first gig. And, because we had gigs there, we also, we played every VFW hall, every playground it would have us, you know what I mean? And we'd go play these gigs, and we played a lot of shows for like being together for only 2 years. It's
Mm.
ridiculous how many shows we played. It seemed like we played every 2 times every weekend almost for like 2 years. We always played, and we always got good gigs. After a while, we were finally allowed to. We played the what the hell is that place up in the show place up in Dover. We got in there, and then Declator immediately started a battle with Perry Feigenbaum, the guy who booked that place. He also started a war with Randy Now at the same time. So we really had to book our own shows because we didn't have a choice because we got banished from the big clubs. Eventually, Declator made up with Perry, and he booked us. And we've actually played a lot of great shows, man. We played with DOA, played with Black Flag. Geez, man, we played a lot of great shows up there. And, but that was later on. And, at first we basically took that, the band with Dave, we just played and got good enough. And then we went up going and recording the demos that we recorded with Dave. We recorded them at the Sanctuary where AOD had recorded. And it was an adventure, to say the least. I mean, I look back on it like, if I could have done things differently, it would have sounded a lot different. But, if I would have known what I know now, I didn't know any better. I just like, I played the way I played. And I mean, I didn't know really how much equipment like meant as far as sound goes. I had decent equipment. It wasn't terrible. I mean, I had a twin reverb and I had a Fender Lead 2. Those were the guitars I played, early on. And we recorded those demos and then we were going to put that out. So this is where Dave leaves the band. So we recorded the stuff. We're playing all these things, things are going pretty good, we recorded a demo like right before we went in the studio. Everything sounded good. We went in and recorded, and we're like, hey, listen to Dave. Everything sounded good. So we're going to release this on ByR, which is obviously Dave's label. It's AOD's label. It's Dave's label. And we made, we were going to have this record called Party on Doomsday. And somebody baked a cake that had a big mushroom cloud on it, like it was, bomb going off. And like we had everybody, it was like AOD, Bedlam, us. We're all standing around this cake, like Party on Doomsday. So we take the pictures and we're like, oh, great, we're gonna do this record. And then Decolator and Andy take me aside and they're like, we're throwing Dave out of the band. I'm like, are you guys fucking high? It's his record label. You think they're gonna put this record out now? And they're like, we don't care. We're throwing Dave out. I guess they were pissed. Like I always just thought that they just didn't like Dave. But I think the real main reason was that Dave just didn't have the time to do the band, and they knew that it was like, Dave actually knows that too, I think, I wasn't sure with those guys because they were kind of mean-spirited dudes. But, and of course, after, they tell me this, they take the cake and they throw it out the window 3 floors up onto Dave's car as the way of saying goodbye, Dave. This is the kind of shit that happened in Pleased Youth constantly. I mean, I heard Dave talking about how like we'd practice and then like, me and Decolator would start fighting. That wasn't far off, really. I mean, like Andy used to sit in the side and laugh his ass off because he just loved the shit. He would stir the pot a little bit too and get us going. But we were like brothers. Really at the end of the day. I know Decolator's brother was way older than him, and my brother was older than me, so I never really had like that kind of brotherly friendship. And we were like brothers in a lot of ways, and we fought like brothers in a lot of ways too. So there was always that. So, and we throw Dave out, which is I thought was a big mistake. It's what it is. You know what I mean? It ended up being, thank God Dave went back later and finally got somebody to put this record out, because the demos are put out on Beer City, which
Yeah.
was pretty cool. It was nice to get that out. Even though I still cringe when I listen to some of my guitar stuff on that. It's the first thing I ever recorded for real. You know what I mean? I've been playing music forever. But that's really the first stuff that I ever went in the studio. First time I ever went in the studio. So I had no idea what I was doing. I'm a fucking moron. I walked in there, I didn't know what to do, and I just basically turned the shit up to full with my little muff fuzz that I had. Turned that fucking thing loud. And as time went on, I definitely got a lot more finesse. I learned a lot on the job doing this stuff. And so with Dave out of the picture, now we need a singer. So in the meantime, we have a gig at CBGB's. We're opening for Murphy's Law and Agnostic Front at CB's. So we're all like kind of like, this is great, except that I'm a little worried that somebody's going to kill us. Because the Decolator had gotten so many people pissed off at him over time. And we were kind of like had that vote. The only thing that saved us was like Andy was like the invisible shield in front of us.
Right.
Because all the skinheads loved Andy. So having Andy in the band definitely helped in that circumstance. You know what I mean? But we ended up having Steve Cosmano, who was like a longtime scenester. Dave talked about him in his interview too. Steve was in Sacred Denial. He was in 13-Day Vacation. He is in a couple different bands, and we talked him into doing it. And you never saw somebody more nervous backstage than this fucking guy coming out to open up the show, because he knew what our lyrics were, and he knew he had the bullseye on the fucking his head. Particularly, he had a song called Lunkhead that was totally insulting to all the New York Skins, and whether or not, it didn't matter. We came out, we played. It was a great show. It still was great. It was great playing a gig like that. It was like nice that, that we got that gig. But then after that, now we need a singer, and Steve wasn't going to be the singer. We decided that already. We had another gig up in Allentown, and Declator is like, there's this kid, his name's Keith Hartel, and he knows all our lyrics. And I'm like, huh? He knows all our lyrics. What is this kid fucking? What is he fucking mental patient? How would he know all our lyrics? He goes, he knows all our lyrics. I'm like, oh, okay. So we go there, we pick him up. He was actually at Flaming Groovies. It wasn't Captain Video, it was Flaming Groovies, because that's back when Dennis Deacon from the Smithereens owned the record shop over there. And it was before Jimmy Babjack from the Smithereens opened up he had a video store after that called Captain Video. So we pick up Keith and we drive to this gig, and he sings. And he's like, "You're fucking hired." So now we have a 16-year-old kid singing. So now we actually do have the youth of Pleased Youth in the band now. Because at this point, I'm like 20 something years old. The other guys were younger. Like Andy was probably my age too, but I think Andy might have been a little younger than me. And then Decalator was definitely younger. He was about 2 years older. He was like 18, I think, and Keith was 16. So, and we always hated that fucking name too. That was Decalator, named the band when nobody else was around. As always, that motherfucker would do stuff like that. And then we were stuck with the consequences. We all hated that fucking name. And I mean, always hated that fucking name. But we still got stuck with it. And I'm still using it. I don't care. I'm fucking 62 years old. If I play a gig, I'm not going to play it as like, Old Man River or something. I'm going to be fucking Pleased Youth, I don't care if it's stupid or not that all these gray-haired guys are up there playing this shit. That's what it was at the time, and I'm gonna stick with it. I don't care. I'm gonna go to the grave with that shitty name. But so we ended up getting Keith, and then the gigs really accelerated. We played a lot of shit. We played a lot of shows. And at one point or another, after playing all these gigs, and we're getting ready to put the record. Now we have a record recorded. We recorded the album, which was Dangerous Choo Choo, which is the album, that came out on Bayar. Finally, Bayar came back and was like, we'll put something out by you guys. We used to play gigs with these guys all the time. Anyway, we played more shows with AOD and Bedlam than, I think maybe Cyanamid too. We played a lot of gigs with Cyanamid. We always loved bringing in places just so that they would fuck things up. It would be a lot of fun because they were great. I love them. But AOD and Bedlam, we used to play gigs with them all the time. So eventually Lenny came to me and he goes, "Listen, we're putting this record out. We're not doing it for Paul. We're doing it for you because you deserve to get a record out." He was very nice. Lenny's always been a good guy. And he came to me and said, "We're going to do the record." And I was like, "Fucking great." That's like, we found, then we went back in this place. We went into this little studio, JMM Studios in Fords, New Jersey, and we recorded the Pleased Youth record. And it was cool. I mean, that one I was always, there's a whole side that had got re-recorded on that I was always pissed off about. It was done wrong. There was something was messed up with it, and the guy was like, "Yeah, you can't. It's not usable." I'm like, "Fuck you, it's not." And the guys over like they voted me down, and they decided to re-record the whole fucking thing again. And when they did, it didn't come off the way the original version. I can't find any version of that. I had a version, moving 50 million times, and all your cassettes get fucking mangled, and obviously I lost whatever that tape is, and nobody else has it either. So, and Decalator took it with him to the grave. So, but the record, was definitely it was a good record for what it was.
And it's a different sounding record compared to the demo for sure.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I would say Dangerous Choo Choo, for want of a better description, is a lot more like alternative rock, maybe more
Close.
like later period Husker Du.
It was getting to the point where, yeah, we kind of, we got away from the thrash stuff. we were already like moving away from that early on anyway. After the demos, we kind of just like, that's it. And and Declator was writing more stuff like that. And I mean, I had written some stuff earlier on, but a lot of times he came up with ideas and then I would embellish on it. Obviously I played a lot more lead guitar in that band. I mean, there's like leads on everything, which is kind of weird too. But I was really just feeling my way around, man. I mean, trying to learn what to do. You know what I mean? It was something, that I needed to do to like get just to know how to do this stuff. Um, and the record itself is it's a different record, absolutely. It's more mid tempo punk. There's like some almost alternative stuff on it.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was a little, maybe even a little ahead of its time for what it was. But we were moving on for sure. And then before the record came out, Andy was like, I can't do this anymore. The ride from, coming all the way down from Farallon, it was a long ride. And I mean, I felt bad for him at that point, you know what I mean? And I understood. I was like, it's like, it's just too much. And we're like, now we had to find a bass player. So like, we're all sitting there and like, what are we gonna do? And Keith goes, I'll play bass. I'm like, huh? He goes, I'll play bass. I'm like, you're gonna play bass and sing. And he goes, yeah, I'll do that.
Hmm.
And within 3 weeks, he fucking sounded great. And the band was a whole different band. And it was like, we were really fucking hot shit at that point, because he was it was and is a great bass player. I mean, if you listen to that True Love stuff, good God Almighty, that guy is like, he's a monster. He's a monster bass player. He's great. He knows how to play guitar. He's a great guitar player. Believe me, I had him doing some stuff with Pleased Youth. That at the end. Well, anyway, let's get back to where we were. So Keith goes over and he starts playing bass. So now he's the bass player and the singer, and we're off to the races. And it sounded really good, and we were going to record a second record. We recorded all the we didn't record anything actually. We had almost a whole record written. There's a whole record written that was ready to go in. Bayar was going to pay for the recording, and we went on tour and to go promote Dangerous Choo Choo. We did like a Midwest tour. We went as far as like Chicago. So we went, we did this tour. We get all the way out to Chicago, and I had a calamity at my house. And after the gig, I had to fly back. So there was no gigs on the way back anyway. They were just driving back. But we did the tour, and the tour came off. It was all right. I mean, we had our moments. We had like this one gig, I think, in someplace in Michigan, and we played a house party, and they were just waiting for us to get off so they could like jam heavy metal songs. And I was just like, get the fuck out of here. Like that wasn't our bag ever, you know what I mean? We never were a metal band, and we tried to steer away from doing anything metal. Like unless it was a goof, like something like Rock Against People was like more, that was our metal song, Rock Against People, because it was a goof, And so we finished the tour, I fly back. The guys get back, and Decalator, I guess, had absconded with, like, the other guys found that he took off with the traveler's checks from the tour, the money we made. So they were pissed off. Plus, both Keith and Greg both wanted to get in a touring band. After they got their taste of touring, they wanted to do that, and they knew that I was not going to be a touring guy. I just never could do that. I've always worked. I had a job, I didn't live with my parents, man. I was on my own. I've been on my own since I was 18 years old, and it was it's out of necessity, I kind of just, it was either, my parents moved off and, they moved to Pennsylvania up in the mountains, and I'm like, I'm not going there. My parents broke up, and I didn't speak to my dad, and, my parents moved up there, and I was like, I'm not fucking moving there. So I stayed behind, and, I just lived until, I got, believe me, I was homeless. I had a lot of fucking problems. So, and I ended up getting a job, and I just worked a job forever. I couldn't abandon the job. I mean, I always had to pay for a fucking apartment. So the guys wanted to do that. They're mad at Decolator. Decolator's just like, fuck this, I'm done with this. So everybody walked away, and I'm standing here like, hey, idiots, we have a record deal. You're going to put out a second record. Guys wouldn't do it. They were like, they're dead set about it. They decided they wanted to go and move on. So Pleased Youth was kaput.
Mm.
It was a shame because, I mean, the stuff that we had written was really, really good, and it would have sounded great. The second record would have been everything the first record wasn't, you know. I mean, there's stuff on the first record I love. Like, I love Uncle Eli. Just like Let Down Again is great. There's some good stuff on there, like Life on an Edge, The Calling. Those are great songs. But I think the second record would have surpassed it. And it's a shame. We'll never know, because actually one of the songs I want to do for the new record, if we end up doing another Pleased Youth record, is like one of the songs from that, you know, that we had. The only demo we have of it really is when we played at FMU. You know, when we played on Pat Duncan's show, and we have like this song called Rejection on the Bus that I always thought was like a monster song. It would have been great, you know, and that was like a nice mid-tempo punk song. It was really cool. And, you know, that's the only song that really survived, you know, that whole, you know, all those sessions, you know. That and White Trash from Bad Karma, because I was going to put that on there. I had written that for Pleased Youth originally, and it would have been perfect. I actually was going to bring the slide out to do it on that. But it never, you know, we did that live maybe twice. We did like, you know, we did a lot of the songs that we were demoing, we did live that we never did any other place, and we never had a recording of. Yeah, I'm bittersweet about, like, you know, like Pleased Youth with that, the way that all turned out. I thought for sure we had a really good band, and, you know, getting the front wheel, that was like one of the many times that I've been in bands and I got disappointed by shit that happened, and, you know, things getting broke up. Like Bad Karma was the same fucking way, you know, and it's a shame, you know, and I don't have any ill will towards, you know, Wally, because Wally moved down to Washington, and, you know, and Mick was playing guitar with us at the time, got a gig playing, not playing, but being a guitar tech for Ween.
Mm.
And it was around the same time that Ween poached everybody from the Court Tavern, and they would never play the Court Tavern again. It's always pissed me off. Guys, if you're listening, fuck you. Particularly Gene Ween, that fucking meatball, Aaron, fuck him. I like Mickey. I've gotten along with Mickey since then, but those guys like never would play. I found out it was Aaron that would never let them play the Court Tavern again. And I was always fucking like, fuck you, you fucking jerk off. He got up on stage during a Bad Karma show when Mick was playing with us, and somebody like yelled at him like, get off the stage, fat ass. It was fucking wonderful, and I don't mind saying it. But they got, like, you know, our sound man, Kirk Miller, he's from the Court. Gabe Monago, the queen of Monago. Yeah, Gabe, like, he did sound for the Court for years and years, and they pulled him to do stuff too. Mick, my guitar player, Dave Drywitz, the bass player, Dave. They got, they met him at the Court Tavern. Claude Coleman, their drummer, they met him from the Court Tavern. They took everybody from the Court, and then they wouldn't play. So that was always weird. But I think they had a problem also with the guy who was booking before me. Not to get into this nonsense. I fell down another rabbit hole, Joel. Sorry.
Well, let me pull you out of.
Don't mind me fucking bad mouthing somebody. I always like, you see, I told you, man. Me and Kaprowski are closer than.
Well, anytime you want to shit talk him, I'm all ready. So.
I don't shit talk Tommy. He's a good dude.
I know.
I love Tommy. To be honest, he's like, and I'm very, very happy for him with what's going on with him right now. I'm proud. He got a great deal, and he's getting out there playing. That's just the best. And the band sounds great too. It's like
Yeah.
really, it's a really a cool thing. And it's good to see it happen. I know if Decolator was around, he'd be so fucking mad that Tommy's like, getting, famous. I love it. It's fucking great. It was always like, that stuff like kind of would always bother him. I remember back when like, it never bothered me because I don't really care, man. If somebody likes your band, cool. If they don't, and I mean, I believe me, at one point, like when all the pleased youth bands, the one band that was probably more like popular and around was Niblick. Andy, of all people, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's so funny. I know I must have killed Declator. I loved it. I thought it was fucking great. Those guys went out and they did their shit. They got their stuff released pretty wide. And
Yeah.
I'm fucking glad for them. I thought that was cool. I mean, what, just because my shit isn't getting out there, whatever. Like music's not a popularity contest anyway. I don't give a fuck. I've never, if I worried about how many records I sold, I'd be fucking hanging from the back over here. What the fuck do I care? You know what I mean? It's like I do music for me in the end of the day. And if people like it, that's wonderful. It's always been cathartic to me. I like to go out and play. I like to get feedback from people playing live. That's something I miss doing the things that I'm doing now. But, with Pleased Youth, we played some shows that were fucking crazy. And I mean, I remember we played one time at this place. It was a place in Philly, and AOD were supposed to play, and they no-showed, and they bumped us to being a headliner. And we came on, and the first chord I hit, people were fucking flying off the stage. I never seen anything like it. I was like, holy shit. People always said, like we played Philly a bunch of times, and we were always like, kind of like, nobody ever fucking, comes out, and we never win in Philly. And then sure enough, we played that gig and we're like, whoa, now we know what it's like to be fucking good in Philly. It was like crazy. People were talking about us afterwards. We were like, this is great. It's, but there's been shows that were like just nuts, um, just over the years, we played a lot of shows.
Yeah.
So, and that was one that always stuck with me. So anyway, so we moved on from Pleased Youth. I don't know if you want to go over any of the later stuff with Pleased Youth or not, or,
Well,
uh,
I know there have been different versions of Pleased Youth playing shows here and there
yeah.
in just the last few years,
Mhm.
without Paul, obviously.
Yeah,
Rest in,
well, I mean, we did do a reunion with Paul. Paul reached out to me in 2001 or 2002, and he was like, "Do you want to do Pleased Youth?" And at that point, me and Paul were not on really speaking terms, to be honest with you. Me and Paul, have a very long history, and there was times when I got really mad at him. I didn't like some of the shit he was up to. I knew he was stealing from people and shit. And, I also knew he had a fucking heroin habit. So I kind of distanced myself from that shit because I'm not the kind of guy, I never was a heroin dude. I never liked that shit. I never liked, being around people that did it. Even though I was a lot of times, from being at the court because, you're at a public place. So, you're there and believe me, people that I knew that were there were doing heroin too. And they got themselves clean over time. Some did, some didn't, but Paul came to me and he wanted to do this. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So that broke the ice. And then me and him started getting together and we kind of reignited our friendship and it was good. I mean, he seemed like he was in a better place than he's been. And, so we ended up doing we were going to do the reunion show. And Greg didn't want to do the reunion. He had some stuff going on in his life. And he was like, I can't devote the time to do this properly. He did, what he wanted to do on that one. I don't blame him. I mean, if he didn't feel like he could put into it what he needed to, then it was probably better off. But now we have to find a drummer. So we start looking at drummers, and there were some guys that came in at Decolator new from up north, like punk rock guys that were pretty mediocre from what I remember. Uh, there was one guy in particular, I was just like, oh, this isn't gonna work. So I was like, fuck this. I was like, Paul, I'm gonna call Mike Palilli. Because Mike knows how to play fucking hardcore. You know, I know Mike, and he knows how to play punk rock. He knows how to play hardcore. He's a good drummer. He'll know how to do all this stuff. And I called Mike, and Mike was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." For people that are not familiar, Mike Palilli, he was in a band Buzzkill. He's in some other bands too. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'd like to give him the props, but I just can't remember the other names of bands being a fucking anyway. So Mike, we ended up doing this. Mike came in and he was great. We nailed it. Like 2 practices, we're ready to do the show, and we played the show. There's actually a clip up online, and it sounds great. It sounds amazing. It's just like holy shit. Like my guitar is just so fucking sounds so good because at that point, I got to play the way I wanted to play in the old days. Now I knew how to do it, and I had like I did a double amp setup because Decolator had a Marshall stack and a nice SG. I had like a Stratocaster, which was the Strat that I have is kind of like a 50 Strat, but it's kind of Frankensteined out. It was a custom shop model, and I ended up I played that with the Marshall and the twin reverb with an AB, and you can hear how loud I'm playing on that clip online. It's just it's loud and it sounds great, and I had the sound exactly the way I wanted, and it came off great. The reunion was great. We had a great time. We played a night show, and then a day show just with Dave singing. So Dave got up and sang. The night show had Keith. Somehow we could. That was the thing. That was the big drama with that one too. Was Keith didn't want to do it. He was like, I don't know, and then we weren't even sure up to the day of the show whether he was going to show up. He shows up with his hair all spiked out, like looking like Keith Hartel from 1985. He looked exactly like Keith, like the old Keith, and it sounds great. And it's like he nailed it. He's in the crowd with the people and stuff. It was like it's just cool. It was really great, and I figured we're probably going to do some more. And 5 months later, Decolator died. The weird thing was he kind of made up with everybody he had real issues with before he died. It was very strange. He almost knew, like he knew he was going. And he also did this show. It makes me think, what the fuck, like what is going on, but he died like 5 or 6 months later. That was the hardest funeral I ever went to. That's for sure. Going to a young guy's funeral, and the parents are there, and the parents were like, somebody was like, "Hey, Andy, Doug, the Decolators want to see you." So we went in and met with them, and they thanked us for being good friends with Paul. Yeah, I fucking was in tears. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Very bad. So anyway, let's move on from that to the future bad karma, not bad karma, future pleased youth stuff. So later on, my wife's like, "Why don't you do pleased youth? Like, what the fuck?" I'm like, I feel weird doing that with that Decolator. She goes, "You could do it." And I was like, I thought about it and I thought about it. I asked the guys, would you be interested in doing this? They're like, "Yeah, sure." Even Keith. He's like, "I'll play guitar." He'll do Decolator's parts, and then have Andy play the bass. So we started we did 4 or 5 shows. We played some nice shows. It was like, it wasn't the most crowded shows in the world. The one Pleased Youth show we did was pretty crowded. That first one where it's like with the Cyanamid reunion and all the Bedlam guys, which I'm glad they did that when they did it, because now fucking Rhino's gone and shit. It was good that they got to do that shit too. But then we did that show, and that was good. We did a show up in Lehigh Valley. We did 2 shows in Lehigh Valley. We did a show at this place in fucking New Brunswick. We played to two people and we made about $500. So I mean, one thing was like, I'm like, we're gonna do this. Let's make some money at least. You know what I mean? So the gigs we played, we made some money most of the time. I mean, not that I go out of my way just to make money, but it's nice. If we're gonna go out and do this shit, why not get paid? I mean, I've been paying my dues forever. I never really had any big paying gigs. The biggest paying gigs I got probably were those police youth gigs.
Mm.
Um, but that was cool. That was nice. It was nice getting together with the guys. And when I moved here, it kind of put the kibosh on like on that thing I was doing. So that's why I didn't put it away completely. I can still come up and do it. I'm just kind of biding my time. I mean, I want to do it right if we do it.
Right.
And I'd like to come back, and then hopefully, believe me, I reached out when we were doing shows. I reached out to like Punk Rock Bowling and, bigger punk rock stuff. And they were just like, get the fuck out of here. We don't remember you. I'm like, yeah, you don't remember us. We booked your fucking band, you shit for fucking brains. That guy from Youth Brigade. He actually you got our hall closed down. That dick fucking head. Fuck him. Anyway.
Lunar Bear Ensemble.
Okay.
Let's get into that because we have a bandmate in common.
Yes.
That band.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Lunar Bear in 2007, which I think was the last time you guys have played to
With
date.
Martin? Was that the gig with Martin
Yeah.
in 7? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, no, that was a one-off, but that was nice just getting together with him again. I love playing with Martin. I mean, the fact that I'd seen PIL probably about 5 times with him before he joined the band. I mean, like John came to me and he was like, Martin's interested in playing with us. I'm like, what? Martin Atkins? Are you fucking kidding me? I was like, whoa. So, at this point, like Lunar was like, we still were, even after this, we're pretty much an experimental band, improv band for the most part. We did a lot of improv. That's where I really learned how to play guitar a lot more from doing that stuff, just learning stuff on the fly, knowing that I could do stuff like that. So, at one point, I guess like the band, I joined them when I was still in Pleased Youth early on. I think the 84, I did some gigs with John and he had some other people in there, like, locals like that were in the bands, like there were like Frozen Concentrate, Tina Mashi, and some other people that were in it, and Brad Hall. They played, and those guys were like, we can't do this anymore. So they gave up on John, kind of. So in the interim, John was looking to do something. He wanted to get it going again. And somehow Martin moved to New Brunswick.
Right.
Who would have thought? He moves to New Brunswick, and he's going out with this girl that's like, that knows everybody from the court. So he starts going to the court. He's hanging at the court tavern, and John talks him into playing. So we go for this, like, we're gonna do like we needed a bass player, and he wanted to get keyboard player and another guitar player. So John throws in John's mind a great idea of having this audition, and everybody's there in the room, and it sounded like the Underwater Submarine Band from the fucking Little Rascals. It was like the Man on the Flying Trapeze. I mean, it was just the fucking worst. But the thing was, we were there, and that's where I met Tom Diello, who I ended up being in Back Karma with all those years. I ended up being with him, he ended up coming to this audition, Tom from Belmar. So he comes to the audition, and the other people were like, this isn't gonna work. So like but John talks to me, and John talks to me and Martin, and we're like, what do you guys think? And I'm like, this guy Tom is definitely a keeper. The other guys get fucking rid of. And Eddie Freeze, I think, was from Crossfire Choir. And they ended up like, he was like they were on the cusp of making it, and they they shot themselves in the foot in a big way. Just shit that happened in the music business. You know, they did everything you shouldn't do. I mean, they had Hilly Crystal was their manager, and he got him a deal, and they had Steve Lillywhite producing him. I mean, it was they had a big deal going on, and it ended up fucking falling through, and they ended up losing everything, which really sucked. I mean, I felt bad for those guys. They're, you know, for what they were not my cup of tea, but you know, believe me, they were doing a Duran Duran thing, and that's fine, you know. So we bring Eddie in. So now that we have the core of the band, you know, it's me, Tom, Martin, Eddie, and John, and then Bear. You know, we can't forget the Bear. You know, my man Richard Graham, the Bear, who was like a percussion guy, and he had like every percussion instrument. He was like, you know, we used to goof on him. He's like the ethnomusicologist. So he had the cuica. He'd have like all these fucking instruments out, you know, and you know, and it was cool. It was a lot of fun playing. You know, playing with Martin was an incredible experience. And not to mention finding Tom at that point. You know, because Tom was a great bass player, and I mean, you know, he was really good at doing everything, not just punk rock. And I could play stuff that wasn't punk rock. I knew how to play other stuff. I mean, I was more of like probably like in a Keith Levine type, playing that kind of style, you know. Like I was more that kind of player, or Andy Gill from the Gang of Four. So
Right.
playing with Martin, I was like, you know, this is going to work pretty well for me. And sure enough, we go out, we start playing. We got the first gig I think we did was a high profile gig, opening up for Henry Rollins. Somehow John got Henry Rollins to do a spoken word show at the court because he did, you know, he turned him on to Hubert Selby, the guy, you know, the author, and you know, and he was like, wow, this is fucking incredible. Like he had never heard of Hubert Selby before. So John ended up striking up a friendship with Henry. Funny, it's like because when Henry was in Black Flag, he fucking hated Please Youth. We played a gig opening up for them, and we brought Keith out on a cross to the stage, and he was so fucking mad, and he was like standing by the sound man the whole time saying, "These guys fucking suck, fucking jerk offs." He was pissed off. So we always thought it was funny, you know, that Henry hated us. But I think the reason why he hated us even more was the fact that like he had a autograph signing at Cheap Thrills in New Brunswick, and this kid that we knew went up to him with a picture of Jim Morrison and asked him to sign it.
Oh,
And he was like, "Get the fuck out of here." And the kid was like fucking laughing at him and shit. And they threw him out of the store. So sure enough, that kid got in on the guest list, on our guest list, because he was a friend of our band. So Henry never forgot it. He was pissed off at that. But he ended up doing a spoken word show, and we opened up. And it was a great show. It was really cool. You know, we ended up getting some good shows with, you know, that lineup. We played the Knitting Factory quite a bit too. We played Maxwell's. Packed place was packed. John ended up getting Lydia lunch like to read before we played. She did spoken word before we played, or after we played, I think. No, it was before. She did before, I think. She didn't want to have to go on after that nonsense, you know, after us making a fucking bunch of noise. And that was like one of the funniest gigs ever because we were like, you know, we kind of just took advantage of Maxwell's really bad. They had Watney's Red Barrel beer, and I think we drank fucking 5 cases of it. At the end of the night, our sound guy was walking out with like his arms folded with all this beer, and I was downstairs in the dressing room. There was a dressing room, and then there was like where they kept the booze, like they kept the beer down there in the basement. So I'm over there entertaining some friends, doing some lines of crystal meth off of a beer box. And sure enough, here comes Steve Fallon, the owner of Maxwell's, and he's walking some people around, giving them a tour. And I look up and I'm like, "How you doing?" So that was like a lot of fun. That was a great gig. We had a lot of fun. You know, I think the next time we came back, they limited at how much they would let us drink. We played again. They let us play one more time.
And of course, you guys did a fantastic album in
Yeah.
1990.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. It was actually done earlier. It was done, I think, in '88. We did it right about the same time that Bad Karma started, around then. So it was it was something else, putting that record out. I felt good about the record. Tom had misgivings about the record because I guess like the guy who produced it, he had like this bass thing that he had this bass effect he put on his bass, and he was all mad about it. But the guy did a great job producing. He's a real good producer. Anyway, my memory sucks. So
Well, was
anyway, but regardless, so the way that was recorded was the funniest story, because we recorded it at this really, really, really expensive studio in Times Square. And that was back when, everything was on reels. There was no digital recording, obviously. So we went in, and Martin had brought in like his guy that was his pill guy to make sure he got his drum sound exact. The guy was living in New York, and he came by, and he also helped out with some other shit. But we recorded that record live, which was fucking amazing. I mean, I listened to it, I'm still like, that's pretty cool. We did that shit. They locked me in a fucking stairwell with a Marshall amp, and I just recorded. We just played nonstop. We played and recorded all that stuff. I think we had one other song that didn't make the cut. We weren't happy with it, so we bailed on that one. But everything else was like, there was no more than one take on anything. John didn't overdub anything. John did everything. We did, we didn't. There was no second takes. Everything was live, and that's the way we've always played anyway. So it was interesting. And then the best part is afterwards we couldn't afford to pay to get the recording, to get our reels back. So the guy who did produce the record went back, and he said, "I got to take care of something in the other room." He took the reel and he ran it off onto the thing, and we got it out somehow. He still has it, so he got it. Even though like we did it on spec is what we did, because we thought we were going to get a deal. We actually had a meeting with Island Records, and it was my one and only real major label record record meeting, and it left such a bad taste in my mouth. I wrote a couple songs about it. The guy had no idea. The guy was like the A&R guy we spoke to. He was a fucking jerk off, and I could tell. We went and had a drink afterwards, and he ordered scotch and water. I was just like, yeah, you're a dick. Or scotch on the rocks. I was just like, give me a fucking pitcher of beer, you dick. I was just like, fuck this nonsense. But we ended up putting it out anyway. Martin ended up putting it out on Invisible later. And I mean, the one thing I can say is, playing with him, the one thing that always amazed me is his foot. His fucking foot hits harder than most people hitting fucking with their arm full blast. I mean, you could feel his drum, his bass drum. And playing in a little rehearsal room with him, the only thing that's like, it was even crazier than that was, one thing that we were lucky about with Lunar Ensemble, because later we dropped the Bear when Bear left, so it became Lunar Ensemble. But we always were lucky to get good drummers. The guy who was like, after like Martin left, I don't even know why the whole thing. I guess he was moving to Chicago, and that was the end. He was like, he got the gig with Ministry, and he was like, I can't do this anymore. I got the gig with Ministry. I gotta do that. So we were like, all right, well, I guess we're without a drummer again. So we went back to having no drummer, and then we found Lance Carter, who is an incredible drummer. I don't know if you've ever heard Lance.
sure.
Lance played drums with Sonny Sharrock. So he was a heavy hitter, and I mean in every way. just like Martin beat the shit out of the drums. I would be in a room with this fucking guy in a little rehearsal room. We used to practice on studio and on Avenue A in the city because John lived in the city at one point. And we would we'd go practice at this place Context on Avenue A or Avenue B. It was Avenue A. We used to go there and we practice in this little fucking room. And I brought my twin with me because I hated practice amps, like rehearsal room amps. They always were terrible. And I brought my twin reverb. My twin reverb was 135 watts. I had to have that thing up fucking so loud just to play over the top of him. It drove John crazy because, he was doing spoken word and he always wanted us to be quieter. But you can't be quiet with a guy who plays like fucking either Martin or, just it kills me. Lance. Lance was a great guy and he fucking died too. He died of cancer, that was so bad, and he's such a good guy. And I miss him. I miss his playing. I miss him in general. He was a great guy. He was an interesting character, to say the least. And then later on, we had another guy who didn't really play in that kind of style, but he played more jazzy and more like in tune with what we were trying to do anyway. And that would be Chris McKenna, who's a very good drummer. He played on the last album that we did, Acts of Love, which ended up, that was the last thing we did. And I don't think we'll be doing anything more. I don't know at this point. I mean, at least not in that configuration. I might do stuff with John. Who knows? John's always trying to get me to do stuff, but I mean, the only thing I'm going to do now is do shit in my office, and I'll send you the fucking thing. Put something over the top of it. Then.
Right.
I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm not doing band rehearsals. The only band rehearsal I'm doing right now is going to be Pleased Youth and maybe Bad Karma if we get that together again. I wouldn't mind doing Mr. Payday again too because that was a good band.
Well,
so what do you want to cover now?
I want to get into my favorite project that you've done because it was my introduction to you as a musician.
Okay.
When I got into the Jersey scene, one of the initial bands I heard about was Bad Karma.
No.
So I'm excited to get into this section because
excellent, man.
always
that's really good.
always love that band.
I had no idea, man. That's great.
Yeah.
That's really good because believe me, I put my heart and soul into that band. That band, probably even more than Mr. Payday in a lot of ways, was really where I was at the time, and I really learned how to play there because you can't fake shit with a 3-piece.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, later on we became a 4-piece, but that wasn't until way later. We were a power trio, and I mean, you learn you got to fill up the sound. You can't just go off and do leads off the side. You know what I mean? And I knew how to do the leads. I knew when to do them and how to do them. That band just, we were very lucky. And it's a weird band because we got together and we started out. I was going to get a band together with my friend Spook House, who was a bartender at the Court Tavern. I was friends with him forever. He's a knucklehead, he's a good guy. I have many Spook House stories. I'll do one right now, actually, because we're doing the story here. So he's like, let's do this band. So I'm like, okay, let's do a band then. Like I was going to do the band with him. And he's like, there's a guy here. I think he'd be a good drummer. This guy, Wally Bird. And I meet Wally. Wally's the nicest guy you could ever meet. And I was like, okay, let's try this. So we got together and we started trying to do this. And at the time, I was good friends with Tom Diello, who was playing bass in Lunar Ensemble. And he's like, I'd really like to do something else with you at some point. And I was like, oh, really? Well, we're doing this band here. Do you want to play guitar in this one? Because Spook's playing bass. He goes, yeah, that'd be cool. I got a guitar, so I'd like to learn how to do that in a band. So he came along, he tagged along, and we started doing rehearsals. I think we did one without him, and then the next one we did with him. The first one we did was in the court basement. And it was just me, Spookhouse, and Wally. And Spookhouse's girlfriend, his crazy hippie girlfriend, Crystal Asmar. So Crystal's sitting to the side and she's chain smoking cigarettes. This is back when you could still smoke in a bar. Not that the bar was open downstairs. You could smoke down and do whatever you want downstairs anyway. So, so she's down there smoking, chain smoking cigarettes and going, man, you guys got bad karma. She just kept saying it over and over again. We're like, and then sure enough, like we're playing and the fucking furnace catches on fire and the fuck place fills up with smoke. We're like, I think we're going to have to be called bad karma. So we ended up becoming bad karma thanks to his hippie girlfriend. So we go along and we start doing the band, and then Tom comes over and he starts playing guitar. So we did some practices, and then we said, well, now we got enough songs. Let's go and do a gig. We'll do an opening gig at the court. Why not? I could play the court whenever I wanted to at that point, By that point, I was kind of like part of the furniture in that joint, So, so I ended up going over there and we got the gig, and we played one gig with Spook. And it was pretty funny. I think I scared more people than anything else because my early stage performance was really I was really always taken by this movie called Carney. It's got Gary Busey and Robbie Robertson in it and Jodie Foster. And it's the guy is like in the dunking tank. He's like hassling people on the dunking tank, yelling at people, you fucking jerk off. So I kind of like was yelling and screaming like that, and I know I chased a lot of people away from us at first. That's just, unfortunate. There's probably people that never came back to see us again because of our first performances. Because I used to lay it on thick. I was like also a big fan of Lee Ving from Fear. So, and really when it came down to it, like I was still like really into punk rock. I love punk rock. We branched out a lot with Bad Karma, a lot. But I always kept that ethos, the punk ethos, because even now I do. The thing I'm doing now, I'm doing the same thing. It's DIY all the fucking way. So we end up doing, so we do this Bad Karma thing, and like the gig goes okay. And then we go back and we practice again. And we're like, Spook goes, I'm going to get a 6-pack. I'll be right back. Leaves, gets on the train and leaves. Just goes. And I was like, you fucking jerk off. So we threw him out. And I'm like, Tom, play bass? He goes, yeah, I'd rather play bass anyway. Fuck it. So, so Tom's like a great bass player. Wally is a very versatile drummer. And then there's like, I'm learning to do all this different stuff and becoming a way better guitar player, over time. All that time playing, gigging and doing stuff, I really cut my teeth, the Lunar stuff. So by the time that, Bad Karma came around, we just started going to town and doing, we started writing material and we wrote so many songs. And I mean, even though we really only released that one thing that I put out, we recorded a lot of stuff. There's stuff that never got released that I'd like to do. But, in the end of the day, I mean, that compilation is pretty stout. It shows you everything we did, a little bit of everything.
Well, we should mention the first Bad Karma record way back when, in addition to being just a great record, has one of the greatest album titles of all time. Forget Sgt. Pepper and all that shit. This record, for those who don't know, is called George Washington Smoked Pot and Owned Slaves.
Yep.
Greatest album title ever.
Jello loved that record title too. He wouldn't do anything with us, but he liked the record title. So that was cool. I did hear that he did like the album title, the record title. And that record, if you have a copy of it, you might want to hang on to it. I think there's only about 200 playable copies of that thing. Matter of fact, I auctioned off the last really good playable copies. Besides, I have a couple for myself. I'm not going to, just for my own thing. But at one point I auctioned it off for a friend of mine who had problems during the pandemic. I went and I auctioned off like, those records, to like people, and people bid up on them and stuff. And it was cool. I mean, I told him, I was like, these records are really rare. These are playable. I went and played them to make sure, because they were all fucked up. I know when Tom went to get them from the pressing plant, he was like, it looked like a racer head, the place that it was done at. But the funny thing is, I think that the wretched ones used to get their shit done there too.
Yeah.
But I guess they did a better job than the ones that they did on me. They just had pock marks, and they were all, the vinyl was all fucked up. I mean, it was a nightmare. And then we did the album covers, and then we folded them. We did the whole punk rock thing on them. So, yeah, that record, if you have a copy of it, hold on to it, because it's probably going to be worth money, maybe when I die. We'll see.
Mm. And some of that stuff is up on Bandcamp these days.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I put it up. I put
Yeah.
some of it up. So, I mean, basically, I try to at least get my stuff out there, stuff that I didn't get released, but the Bad Karma stuff, I mean, we played a lot of gigs with Bad Karma too. And I mean, we just never really could catch a break. It's really what it came down to. I mean, you know, even at the, even at the end when things were like, there was problems. There was always something that happened right at the worst time possible. I mean, we did have the CD out too. I don't know if you remember the CD, which is called Just for the Hell of It. That one is like, I think, a 12 song record. I was never happy with the mastering job on that thing. And I had my friend Tom Ruff do the mastering. Matt, you remastered some of it. And it sounds like leaps and bounds better than that CD did. There's a lot of things that I have regrets about that CD. And that was one of them. I think Tom had found a place in the city that was next to Frankfurt Wayne. So he's like, yeah, probably good. The guy was like, he was very milquetoast the way he mastered that thing. That should have been loud. And when Tom Ruff got his hands on it, it was leaps and bounds better. I mean, it was fucking way better. Some of that stuff is just like, I mean, I went back and I remastered some of the other stuff that the guy did the mastering on. It was just so fucking awful. It just made it like sound like, it sounded very quiet. And that always pissed me off. It wasn't a really loud record. And it's one of my regrets, because that record was good. There was really good stuff on that record. I mean, we were going to do stuff all along, but just money. It always came down to money. We just didn't, nobody would put anything out for us. And I always thought it was like almost like a waste of time putting shit out on our own. Eventually we had to, eventually we had no choice. I mean, we had a record we wanted to do. It was going to be called Punk Rock Record. Just say punk rock on the fucking front of it. And it was just like all the punk rock stuff that we recorded that came out on that compilation. It's all on it now. And it's all remastered by Tom Ruff, which sounds amazing, some of that stuff. It sounds so much better, and yeah, I mean, we had a lot of ideas for records. Actually, Eating the Afterbirth of the Baby Boom was one of the album titles I wanted to do for later on. And but the thing was, all right, so we're at Bad Karma now, and we're like, we're rolling along, we're playing gigs, and we wrote like literally about anywhere close to 100 songs. I mean, we had so many songs. That's why that bootleg has like a lot of stuff on it too that comes on the Bandcamp thing. If you buy the Bandcamp thing, it's got like all the bonus stuff is all these bootlegs from the Kirk Miller, the guy from Ween again. He used to record shit at he used to do recordings like live, and the recordings were really good. And I went back and and I said, Kirk, what do you have? And he gave me everything he had. He went back and like went through his archives. When I started putting that compilation back, and I started finding all these songs that I remember doing that we had only did like once or twice, and they sound great. So I was like, put them on the fucking thing. And so we ended up doing like a lot of stuff. And at one point we decided we're going to do a 4-piece. I want to do a 4-piece. I had a friend of mine, Mick Preston. Mick played guitar a lot like me. So me and him playing together, interwoven, sounded amazing. And I started writing stuff to make it. My idea was to come up with this. My premise was to make it sound like a punk rock Thin Lizzy. That's what I wanted. So we started writing stuff. We played some gigs. We played some amazing gigs. There's a poster behind me. I don't want to start fucking around with my camera. There's a poster behind me that has it's for this record release party we did at the court. We were on this compilation called RARF or no RAFR Flipside. It was put out by Flipside, and we had a song on the compilation, and they were doing CD releases around that because at this point everybody's just putting out CDs. There's no album, unfortunately, at that point. So we did this this CD release party. It was with 9 Pound Hammer, the Pleasure Fuckers, FF, Wretched Ones. There was a lot of bands on it, and it was really, really over the top, crowded. It was the first time Nashville Pussy played the court. So we played that gig, and it was crazy. And we headlined. We headlined that show over all those bands. And at the like when Nashville Pussy played, this was like probably the first night that I was actually in charge of at the court. And that's after I took over the booking. It was like 96 or 7. And I see that girl, I forgot her name. She was nuts. That 6'5" chick. Anyway, Corey Wells, or Corey. I forgot her last name. Corey. So Corey goes over and she picks up a Jack Daniels bottle. I'm like, what you doing with the Jack Daniels bottle? I see her take a big mouthful and she lights a torch. I'm like, the fuck's this girl doing? Next thing I know, she blows a wall of fucking fire all the way across from one side of the stage to the other. It's a literal wall. I almost shit my pants. I was like, this place is going to burn down the first night I book. Holy shit. She does it 2 more times. They finish the song and I'm like, holy fucking shit. I thought for sure the place was going to burn down. No one knew it was coming. And I was just like, oh my God. And I booked them again, like probably 4 times after that. But they also introduced a lot of great bands to me, like Zeke, and they were fucking cool. And Oreo Speed Dealer, that was another one. They'd end up having to change their name to Speed Dealer because it was Oreo Speedwagon pussies fucking sued them. Anyway, so we ended up headlining and we played, and I mean, it's like we blew the fucking roof off of that place. I never seen it. In all the years I played, that crowd was so fucking crazy. I mean, it wasn't mosh pit or anything. It was just like people just into it. And I mean, at one point, we did a cover of "I Don't Need No Doctor" by Humble Pie, and Ryder from Nashville Pussy jumped on my back while I was playing a guitar solo in the crowd, and I was just like, "This is the fucking coolest." And so that gig was amazing. And then the next night, we played the gig at what was that place called again? Oh man, it's on the corner of Jesus, I'm fucking blind. The Continental. Sorry, the Continental. So we're playing the Continental the next night. So we go in, and of course we're gonna take a stiff one from fucking Noel again, Hole. So fucking Noel comes up to me, and he goes, "Yeah, you guys are going on first." I'm like, "No, we're not." He goes, "What?" I go, "No, we're not. Put somebody else on first. We're not going on before I forgot what time. I was like, we're going on at this time. We're going on second. You're not fucking us again, Noel. Fuck you." He was always mad at me because we had done a gig at the Continental with Bad Karma the night that Kurt Cobain died. And I was on stage and I was like, this next one's for Kurt Cobain. It's called "I'm on the Road to Heaven and I Got a Gun." And he was fucking mad because he was like, he was like crying all night over it, and he's like playing Bleach and sitting there fucking crying the blues. Now, mind you, I like Nirvana. I'm not saying I was being a mean guy at this point either, but I just basically like was just like, fuck this nonsense. I'm listening to this guy cry over this shit. Fuck this nonsense. So so that night I was like, I had enough. I'm like, no, I'll be down the street at the Holiday having a fucking cocktail. I'll be back at this time. That's when I'm going on. And he was just like, all right. He was like, he knew I wasn't fucking budging and he wasn't going to argue with me over it. So he stuck somebody else on first. So I came back and we've got up on stage and we leveled that fucking place. No fucking shit. I mean, we blew the fucking back of the room apart. That's how hard we played that night because I went out of my way because he always took us for granted, but he hadn't seen the fucking 4-piece yet. And that 4-piece, we were monsters at that point. We really were. And I mean, no shit, man. We used to do a version of Hava Nagila with the twin guitars, man. And we played that shit so fucking hard. Like it was like almost faster than Dick Dale. So I was like, fuck you all. I went up there and I fucking nailed the back of the room. And Noel was like, wow, you guys are really fucking great. I'm like, yeah, Noel, thanks for putting us on second. Fucking cocksucker. Where is he now? He's probably flipping burgers, that motherfucker. Anyway, I don't care at this point. I can burn all the bridges. There's no bridges left to burn with the Continental. Fucking, that whole street over there is dead. It's like become. Last time I was in New York, I was just like, what happened to my New York? I remember going to fucking matinees and, going to CB's matinees and going out there, man, drinking beer out front, going to fucking pit, knock a couple of motherfuckers out, do whatever, and fucking being jerk offs. This is why I can't walk now. My knees are all fucked up from fucking slam dancing. I'm like, yo, man, who would have thought I'd be 62 fucking years old?
Mm.
Yeah, that happened. So back to bad karma. So in the end of the day, while he moved to Washington, Mick got the gig playing with Ween.
Mm.
So we were kind of like, where we are again. The band is like firing at the top of their game again to have the fucking rug pulled out again. So that goes, and then now I'm out of that band. So after that, I mean, I had a couple other bands that I did. I had that band I sent you the thing over called We Kick Ass.
Right.
The band I did with Mike and Bruce from Buzzkill and fuck, no, Jesus Christ, I'm sorry, man, I'm fucking forgetting your name too. Tim Nauman. God damn. Yeah, you have to kill it's a little late and I'm starting to like lose it. So
And we should mention
anyway,
that was
no.
Tim, the dead guy.
Yeah, dead guy,
Classic band.
dead guy,
Yep.
and it was a good band. It's just I probably didn't take it as seriously as I probably should have. I At that time in my life, it was a crazy time. I just became a dad. I was bartending and working a day job, and it was just my life was so insane. And I mean, it was just a crazy time. But we did that band and then ended up like, we recorded, with Chris Pierce over in his studio at his house. Chris is like, from Doc Hopper. He's been in a million bands, a million and one bands, if you will. Chris is a good guy. And Chris recorded us and then the band just broke up. Never got a chance to even shop it. You know what I mean? Bruce decided he wanted it to be a 3-piece without me. And the other guys were like, no. So we all just parted company. So that's what it is. And I mean, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that one. The band I did after that, though, which I never really had anything to record it with, was a band called This Stuff Will Kill You. We were originally called Teabag, but then there was another Teabag, and we had to change our name. And that one was my buddy Rob Buckley and Nick DeMore, the guy who played in what's her name, and Mr. Payday with me.
Mm.
So, we played a lot of gigs. It was like, that was a cool band. It just, we never got a really decent recording, which sucks because it was like, I had a lot of fun doing that gig. I had a lot of fun playing with Rob. Rob's like an old friend of mine, and it was just cool playing that gig, playing with him. And the thing was, it was originally, the band was Casino Evil. And it was this guy, Bill, that I know, um, Bill Funkhauser, who had put the band together. And I know this is probably going to be a sore subject for Bill because Bill's still not talking to me for other stuff. But Bill decided to fire us because he wanted another guitar player in the band. And I was like, I talked to the other guys and they're like, I don't really think this guy's that great. And he got pissed off and fired us. So at that point, I was like, I love Nicky's drumming. Nicky's a great drummer. And I was like, I'm not going to give this kid up. I'll just start a band with these guys. And that's how this other band started. Now, we played for a long, long time. And then I don't know why I even it fell apart. It just did at the end. I have no idea why that band even broke up. That was one of those weird ones where I have no remembrance of why it broke up, but we just kind of faded off. So, and then I went a long time without really doing anything. And then I ended up doing Mr. Payday, which ended up as Vault Things. It was going to be like more of a punk rock band. It was almost like going to be like Bad Karma, like a continuation of Bad Karma, but Nicky playing drums. So we got together and we played a couple times, and I thought it was cool. I had heard his band Moonslope that he had, and I was interested in them too. And I was like, why don't we just combine both bands? I mean, the kid who played guitar and it was really good. He had a really good voice. And also he had Caroline on keyboards and playing and singing. She had a beautiful voice, great background vocals. So I was like, let's just merge these bands. And as time went on, we tried to do that, and it ended up being the guy from Moonslope. We were called Moonslope for a little while, and the guy who was the Moonslope guy decided that he was pissed off and didn't like what we were up to, so he quit. He took his ball and went home. And I was like, well, I like this band, so let's do this band, and we'll just get a different name. And that's when we started doing Mr. Payday. And that band, intuitive wise, that was the one band I could think of where we could show up anywhere and just fucking wing it, no matter if we practiced or not. We had a great chemistry. The four of us had a really great chemistry. Caroline, I loved that she knew how to play piano, and she didn't do any fancy piano things. She just played like hard driving piano behind us, which was cool. Sometimes she did a little organ. If I told her to do this, I had a synthesizer I brought out. I had this Moog that I use now. I use it on this stuff, on the new stuff I'm doing. But she incorporated the Moog that I have. I have like one of those Moog Rogues. And it was real basic thing. I bought for $100 back in the day. I think it probably goes for about $800 now. But and I've had to fix that thing. I've been inside that thing 100 times and blew all the crap out of it. But I had her playing that, and the band I thought was great. We ended up putting out 3 records, and I thought the records were good. The first one in particular we did with Chris Pierce at his studio, and again in his basement, but a different basement. And I thought it was good for what it was. It was on tape. That was cool. The second record, I was like, kind of like, I wish we would have done it differently. I learned a lot from the second recording. I learned what not to do, and that's what it is overextend yourself and try to do too much all in one session. We did the whole record in one session, and I was just like, you can't do it. It didn't come out right, and I was never fond of the mix either on that record. So the next record, I swore we were going to do differently, and we did. And that is most definitely the best record we did, which is Welcome to the Modern World. Then that's from 2017. That record in general, that's one of my favorite records that I've ever done. That's the most realized statement that I've done, as far as music goes. And I mean, I worked on that record so hard. I mean, by that point, I never really knew how to do demos of stuff. I started doing demos of stuff, and I started learning how to record us at practices so that I would have a demo so I could think of things that we could do with these songs. And when we got in the studio, we ended up getting a decent studio this time. And it was it was a nice place up in Hoboken. Mike Mobius is the guy, and I can't remember the name of his studio now. Jesus Christ, Mike, sorry. But look up Mike. Mike's done some pretty cool stuff. But he recorded us, and it came off really good. I was pretty happy with it. There was things I probably wish I would have done better. Like every time you go in the studio, Now, this is why what I'm doing now is more important to me, because I have all the time in the world to do things. If I don't like a vocal, I'll go back and fix it. I'll do it like right away. I did it today. I was like dipping around with vocals, recorded that whole middle section. So, that record though was as good as it's going to get as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I would have liked to have recorded with Tom Bourgeois, who's like really good. He's got the Nut House up in Hoboken. He was just busy. So we were lucky that Mike did it, and Mike did a good job on it. Because I know I've always bummed out that I never got a chance to work with Tom, because Tom's a really good producer. Of course, these fucking guys now are doing it. Look at Tom and Nikki and their new band, Cathedral Ceilings. We're really good, by the way. If you get a chance, check them out. It's like them and Ralph, who's from Stuyvesant, and he used to be in Footstone and a bunch of other bands, Jersey bands. And he's they're a three-piece, and they're playing with they just doing another record up at Tom's. So they got the chance to work with Tom instead of me, the motherfuckers. Fucking leave it to those guys. Those fucking bastards. Anyway. So there, so at the end with Pleased Youth, those guys had already kind of started working on this Cathedral Ceilings thing. And because of the pandemic, we had started being a 5-piece right before the pandemic started. We had this girl Lisa playing guitar, and it was really coming along. It was really a cool concept. I thought it was like something, after 3 albums, I thought we needed to do something different, and we were going to do the 4-piece or 5-piece and do like harmony guitars. She was really good at picking out harmonies, and the stuff that we had ready to go in the studio sounded great. Then the pandemic hit, and it fucked everything up. And now nobody can get together to practice. All this shit's going on. Those guys started this band because we weren't doing anything. And in the end of the day, I was just kind of like, this chance to move to Florida came up, and I'm like, you know what? The band's on hiatus anyway. There's nothing happening here. The only thing that really kept me from wanting to move is my son. And I figure he can come down and visit, and I can come up and see him. It's not like, we're in different countries or something. You know what I mean? He's older now. He's 21. He's in college. It's time. It's time for me to go, to go down here, even though the idea of retiring is pretty much impossible. It's never going to happen in my lifetime with all the predicaments that I got myself into. So, which I don't really want to go into. But so now, so we covered pretty much everything. Is there anything else you'd like to go over? Do you like to go over some chord history maybe, or?
Well, I do actually.
Okay.
Because, I played the court tavern myself, but it was many years later,
Yeah.
2007.
Okay.
As a matter of fact,
probably.
yeah, it was a benefit show that Paul from AOD set up. And it was AOD minus Dave, minus Bruce.
Oh, I remember that gig. That had the Sucks guys playing with him.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good gig.
Yeah.
Man, I don't mean to throw shade on Bruce or Dave, but man, those guys, the Sucks guys, knew how to whale that shit too. I mean, I'm sure those guys sound really. I'm sure right now Dave sounds really at the top of his game. I guess Bruce doesn't want to play anymore. And but if Jim Foster's playing, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's funny that Jim's playing with them, but just because, not to throw you off a tangent here, but one of my first memories of AOD was I bought a copy of Let's Barbecue that Jack wrote like really nasty shit all over Jim's face. Fucking jerk off. So if you're listening, Jim, it's like, don't worry, I'm sure he's moved on and you've moved on. You know Jack. Jack's a good man.
Yeah.
He's up for shenanigans at all times.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Jack, I love Jack to death, man. He's one of my favorite guys. He's really a super dude, man. And
Absolutely.
I was always very friendly with him. We got to do so many gigs with those guys over the years. Oh my God. Jeez. I mean, the whole buy our records, people like the Bedlam and all. But anyway, so we're going back to the court. I'm sorry to throw you off the tangent. I had to bring that up.
So
So we're
I was
back to you were getting booked at the court for that gig.
right. I was playing in Broken Heroes, who Andy plays with now. Andy plays bass for Broken Heroes now.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know.
And I had a good time there. When I came up, I was mostly playing CB's, the Pipeline, um, Brighton Bar with Jack,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Hey, Jack.
so I mean, because you have obviously more experience at the court than I do, how would you best characterize what made the court unique in and of itself? Because every venue in New Jersey that I knew had its own character. What would you say was the court's greatest character?
We were a fucking pirate ship. Really, when you come down to it. We were like we were definitely not like corporatized or anything else. There's a lot of character in that bar and a lot of characters in that bar. Just the people that do like work there were out of their minds most of the time. The 90s in particular was a crazy time to work there. Late 90s, early 2000s, probably up until about, probably around that gig, you probably were still hitting it hard at that point. Like we it used to be crazy. I mean, you ask somebody like Tommy what he thinks of the court, because he knows, man, when he used to come in, man, we used to get him fucking faced. Particularly when Sucks played. I loved booking Sucks because I really reconnected a lot with Tommy. Because Tommy was like kind of always, he's probably pretty high back in the day, when Bedlam used to play with Bedlam. Those guys like, it was like Spicoli's van when those guys fucking were out there. They'd be smoking up, which I probably half the time I was in the van with those motherfuckers. So, back when I used to really party, but those guys, I mean, Tommy, I really reconnected with Tommy because of the court. And with Sucks in particular, it was like I love booking them. I booked them some pretty good gigs too. I got them in with the Dictators. I booked them on a lot of gigs. But I love playing with I love booking Tommy because like those guys would like fight to see who could get him drunker. And then the rest of the guys would be fucking rolling their eyes, you motherfuckers. That's when we invented the fucking Polish car bomb. The Polish car bomb was when you take a shot of vodka and you drop a shot of vodka in it and drink it. That was the Polish car bomb. And then but then Tommy just thought we were calling it the Polish bomb, so he came in with this handwritten T-shirt that said Polish bomb on it. I'm like, Tommy, we meant the car. You're like because we used to have the Irish car bomb back in the day. That was a drink,
Right.
You take a glass of Guinness and you drop like a shot of Jameson in there, with a little cream or something. We never did. We just put Jameson in and threw it in there, downward. So Tommy, man, we just invented the Polish car bomb. We didn't want him to feel left out, so we invented the Polish car bomb for him. But man, those guys would get so mad at us because we'd get him because my buddy Mark would get him so fucking drunk. I mean, it was like crazy how fucking and because those guys, whenever they play, they get rooms down at the Hyatt down the street
Mm.
because they were like, "Fuck this, we don't want to have to drive afterwards." So they would get rooms, and they could get as faced as they wanted to down there. That's why they loved the court. The fact also, we'd give them drinks all night. We'd booze them up. So, that's one of the things with the Court Tavern was great about too, I think. If a band came in and the band was generally liked, and you didn't, they weren't dickheads, usually we took care of them pretty well. And I think that's one thing that I always appreciated about the Court. That's when a lot of times also we tried to pay the bands. A lot of times you weren't getting paid, man. And I mean, I tried to make sure that everybody got paid, at least something. You know what I mean? I wasn't making a ton of money. And a lot of times, like, a lot of times I'd throw my money in. And, if I knew a band was good and I was like, I can't in good conscience give this band all the, this amount of money. I have to give him some more or something here. Throw this fucking in there. It wasn't like, I was doing it to keep the place floating, man. It really was. I knew I was making money bartending anyway. So it really wasn't, it wasn't my bread and butter doing booking. I mean, there was times I did make money, absolutely made money. But a lot of times I would go out of my way to make sure that the other bands, because the bands at least got paid. I mean, that's something, because I'm in a band. Why would I fuck over other bands? You know what I mean? I want to be treated the way I want to be treated. And I mean, and the thing was, the Court was a lot different, than I don't think there's any club that was comparable. My favorite thing was one time Todd from Maxwell's came to the Court, and he came down because the Neckbreakers were playing because he was managing the Neckbreakers. So he's with Jeff. He's hanging out with Jeff because probably the Jorgensens were ready to kill him at some point because the Jorgensens were always ready to kill everybody. So he's probably hanging around Jeff because he was the neutral member of the fucking Neckbreakers. So, and Todd was their manager. So, so he comes in and he comes up and he's like standing there looking at the jukebox. And he goes to Jeff, Jeff, I think this jukebox is better than Maxwell's jukebox. And Jeff just looks at him and he goes, it's better. He just fucking like hammered him. And then they went downstairs later to watch the opening band. And I had booked this band called Pure Trash. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're like, you can't find anything on this band anymore because I've looked. And they were fucking incredible. The kid, what it was this family from Texas. It was the dad and the two sons and this other guy and this other kid that they had playing bass for. And the kid who played guitar became kind of famous. He did for a little while. I think he disappeared off the face of the planet. But I think Sharon Osbourne was doing something with him or something weird. Something happened somewhere down the line. Anyway, they played. And it was like, the guy's got a fucking, he's got like the Stetson on, the black Stetson that goes forward like this, down, he's like over his fucking thing like this. The kids are wailing, and fucking Todd goes, what the fuck? Where'd these guys come from? And Jeff's like, yeah, they called the Court. So we got that shows you right there that the kind of shit that would go on that yeah. I mean, Todd got like the big bands. He got a lot of good stuff, but we got a lot of shit that he never got. You know what I mean? Like, we got in on that Nashville Pussy stuff early, and and Zeke, and I called up fucking the sewer. I called up the upper crust. I was like, guys, come down to Jersey, play, please. They're like, all right, we'll play, but and then I ended up having to talk him into it. So I go to Brownies in New York to see the upper crust. I was going to go anyway, so who fucking cares? I'm there. I'm going to try to fucking talk to Nat, who's like the singer, who's like nuts, Lord Bendover. So I see Nat. He's coming off the stage. He's going up to the stage, and he's got like a fucking armful of fucking Heinekens. And I'm like, hey, Nat, you think you want to come and talk about playing? He goes, we shall talk later. So I'm like, all right. So you go, and they play, and they disappear after the gig. So there's no after. Later on, I find out that they didn't throw out, he was leaving the band. Lord Rockingham. I forgot the guy's real name, but he ended up getting a job writing speeches for Bill Clinton. So he was leaving, and I guess Nat sat there and fucking screamed at him in that basement. down in Brownies for like, I heard he was screaming at him for like an hour. That dude was like trembling because Nat is like, the first thing you notice about Nat when he's not wearing that outfit on stage is that looks like he's lifting weights. That guy's nuts. And he looks like he might have roid rage too on top of it. So, this guy, I got berated. So I ended up getting them to come down. They came down 3 or 4 times, and they were always popular there because we talked them up. Everybody did. We made sure we talked that band up to no end. And it was cool. That was one of those bands. The only other thing that I'm very, very proud of was the Dictators. Because the Dictators genuinely loved playing the Court Tower. They loved the stage because it was like the stage itself, you're pretty much right there with the audience. You know what I mean? It's not like a high stage. It's like literally, it's about this high up. Not much. You know what I mean? So I noted Dick. Dick loved it. Handsome Dick loved the stage. He loved playing there. He loved playing that place. And I loved having him. I was like, I can't believe I got the Dictators. How the fuck did I get the Dictators in here? It was like one of those days when I was like, these guys are like, and it was the band, with the exception of the drummer. The original band was top 10. It was Ross the Boss. It was like the whole fucking band except for the drummer. And they never liked that guy anyway. So they had a good drummer with them. So they sounded like fucking incredible. That was one of the crowning. I was like, I always felt bad because I could see Andy was never really happy about how much money he made when he played the Court. They always played though. But he was never happy with what I gave him. And I can understand that. Those guys should have been playing big rooms. They were an original punk rock band from the fucking 70s.
Yeah.
They were the original punk rock band. They were like fucking 1974, for Christ's sakes. They were out before the Ramones.
Let me add another PSA. Ross, answer your fucking emails and come on my show. Okay. Continue.
I'd like to hear what Ross says. Ross is an amazing guitar player. Good God Almighty. Ross the Boss, man. Him playing the Court, I got to see him, and I'd see him dial in his sound, man. That guy, man, he was amazing. And top 10 is top 10. That guy, once they played once without top 10, and it wasn't what I'm used to.
Yeah.
Ross covered it, listen, he had to do what he had to do. They didn't have a guitar player. So he covered it all, but it missing top 10, man. Top 10 was great, man. And and Andy played, Andy played good bass. He's a good bass player, you know what I mean? And it's cool that he's doing it still, it's funny he's got Keith Roth playing on with him now.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's good for Keith. I always liked Keith. Keith was always a good guy. He was always our liaison with the East Coast Rocker in the Aquarium. He always used to drop the things off every week.
Yeah.
And then you got the job at satellite radio at Sirius or whatever. So it's good that they're back and doing stuff, but having them at that time with that lineup, how lucky was I? Holy shit. And that place they did good, they did pretty good. They should have did better. That place should have been sold out. It fucking breaks my heart that those guys didn't have a sold out show there ever.
It's weird.
I want to punch someone. How do you not go see the Dictators when it's almost the whole fucking band? The whole band.
I just saw Dick up here play for like 30 people.
Yeah.
Amazing. The guy's still great.
No, he's great.
No one gives a shit.
They were great. They were great when they played there. And I was like that was the luckiest thing. The only other lucky one I can think of that's like particularly weird and wacky was one time I booked Question Mark and the Mysterians. And I was familiar with 96 Tears. I'm like, yeah. I know maybe one or two other songs, but I didn't really know them that much. But I knew they were like a seminal band. And I got a chance to get them in for like I think it was 200 versus the door, which is how I used to always do stuff. I had to, because we couldn't pay those big guarantees. So I had to do a versus. So if like the door was like a certain amount, like if it hit like if it was greater than 200, they got everything after 200, or other than that, they got like, 200 guaranteed or like 80% of the door, 95% of the door. I always gave them pretty much almost the whole door. I had to throw some money at the other pins. But, yeah, I mean, so question mark, I got super cheap. And I'm like, all right, let's see what's going on. So I'm downstairs and I'm having a drink. I'm like watching them set up. And there's hardly anybody there. It's like fucking, 20, 30 people. It's pretty dismal. You know what I mean? So I'm sitting there watching, and there's this guy. He's checking the mic. He's like, check, 1, 2, check. He's checking it, and he's got a big beer belly. And I'm like, wow, man, question mark, really let himself fucking go. What the fuck is going on? And so I'm watching. I'm like, oh, let me see what happens here. We'll see what fucking happens. Whatever. It's really a no lose situation. I think I already made the door, whatever they needed to do to get it done. So, all right. So the band starts playing, and it's like, do. They're like, they're getting the band kicking it out. This band sounds great. All of a sudden, this dude runs down the fucking stairs and runs up and starts jumping on the band on the stage and starts doing like fucking James Brown dancing. I mean, it was like fucking incredible. The question, he was hiding up in his fucking camper the whole fucking time and wouldn't come in the club until he came on, and he ran down the back stairs and got on stage. And the show I was like, that was like one of my top 5 shows at the Court Tavern ever. He encored with Loose by the Stooges.
Right.
And he was doing the fucking James Brown dancing and all that shit. I mean, I was just like, he was doing splits. He was fucking insane, man. And I was like, whoa, how the fuck? That show, that was one of my all-time favorites.
The last time I played the court, I was in the Undead with Bobby.
Oh, really?
And
What year was that?
I was with Bobby 98 until 2008, on and off.
Oh, okay.
And we played the court. It was later. It was like 2008. It was us, Sucks, 76% Uncertain, and Dave Jones from Mental Abuse, his solo band.
Okay.
If
I don't remember that. I don't remember that show, but maybe I was like, maybe somebody else booked it or something. Maybe Mark booked. Maybe my buddy Mark might have booked it. I don't remember.
I think that may have actually been another Paul Richard benefit thing that he was
Oh,
doing. I think.
okay.
It was some benefit. I think Paul set it up. But what stands out to me was that was Kaprowski at his most Kaprowski-esque. That he I had some buddies from Broken Heroes who came out that night. And he was just relentlessly taunting them. Their skins, I had to, and they were like coming to me like, we're gonna fuck your buddy up, make him stop. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. It's just me.
You know what? I hate to tell them this, but I don't think they would be able to fuck him up.
No.
No, Tommy's a lot stronger than he fucking looks like. And I mean, that's why he does the shit he does, because he
Right.
knows no one's gonna fucking motherfucker's a union fucking painter and shit, you know what I mean? And he's constantly fucking at it, he's always working and he's always lifting shit. He's
Yeah.
strong as fucking balls. He's fucking strong old Pollock, for Christ's sakes. Nobody can fucking fuck him up.
And the Broken Heroes guys are actually like the sweetest people in the world. They just hadn't dealt with him before. And they were like, we're gonna fuck this guy up. He won't leave us alone. No, and I'm like, it's fine, it's Tommy. Let it go. It's okay. So I was the
Tommy,
buffer.
it's okay.
I was the buffer between these fucking,
Oh God.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, that's a classic. That's classic Kaprowski. Oh yeah, I love it, man. No, man, that's funny. Oh my God. That's one thing I miss about Jersey too, is I don't get to see Tommy anymore.
Yeah.
or anybody, any of the old people, man, from around. I'll have to make it up there. We got to do something, I guess. I'm gonna have to do something where I could see everybody because I
Yeah.
like to see Jack and Paul too. You know what I mean? I've seen Dave recently. I mean, when he did his book release, he did a show at Will's, and yeah, I felt like a dick. I kind of was bailing out at his band was supposed to play and they never weren't playing, and I was kind of just like, yeah, I better get the fuck out of here. I've had enough. And I was gonna say goodbye, and I couldn't find him, and then I was like, I told Bruce, I'm like, hey, if you see Dave, tell him I said goodbye. And like all of a sudden he's like, you're leaving? I see Dave pops up out of nowhere. I felt like a fucking piece of shit. Like I was leaving without telling him. But it's like, listen, I just my days of sitting there listening to bands that I'm not particularly that it's not something I want to hear. I whatever, my time with that shit's done, I think, I don't know. It's what it is. You want to basically, if you're in a band, you want to stick around for the other bands
Right.
because when the other band doesn't stick around for you, it sucks. And
Right.
I've had a lot of bands that did that to me over the years too. And I mean, it's what it is. So, but I try to do that. But if I'm just there, I came there just to support him because he was doing his book. So, but it was nice seeing him. You know what I mean? I hope AOD comes down here and plays. It'd be cool. I mean, they could play if they play Wills. That'd be great. I'd love to go see him. That
Yeah.
would be awesome. I'd love to see Dave and the rest of the guys. And who knows? Maybe I'll end up having Dave play drums with me on this stupid project. Dave, play drums on me with this stupid project. I keep on saying I'm going to ask you, and I never do. You're probably not going to listen to this. You'll shut me off. So yeah, I don't feel like listening to Doug talk, that jerk off. I've had enough of him, his fucking noise. I had to listen to him when I was in a band with him. That's enough.
That's right.
Yeah. So what else do we got?
One more topic.
Okay.
We got to get into your nickname, the
Uh,
Slug,
uh,
Sluggo, what have you. How did that come to be?
well, so since you're asking, back in my punk rock days, in the early punk rock days, I did various things besides, I shaved my head, so I had my head shaved. And Bobby at the court was like, hey, Sluggo. He started calling me Sluggo because I look like Nancy. It's the Sluggo from Nancy and Sluggo. Or Slammo, as Jeff Jay's fucking magazine had that comic. Oh man. But that's how I got the name Sluggo from Bobby. And then his dad, like anytime anything that would happen at the court, it was always my fault. And he'd be like, that fucking slugger, it's all his fault. So going forward, I started after a while, I was like, I like Slugger better than Sluggo because it's just like for the old man, because I love the old man. Yeah, I was pretty sad when he died. He was a good guy. He used to be fuck with me constantly. He loved to fuck with me and he'd be like winking at people out of the side of his, he'd turn his head a little bit and wink at people. Like, he knew he was fucking with me just for the sake of fucking with me. But at one point or another, I think he was having some boxing pay-per-view going on at his house. And he was like, him and his son both shared like technological disasters, two of them. Neither one of them could plug a fucking light bulb in or like plug a lamp into the wall. So, he's like, hey, Slugger, you think you can come over here and fix this for me? I'm like, sure, Mr. Albert, let's go to your house. I'll fix it for you. I got over there. I'm like, here you go. Fixed it. And he was like, then I was like in his good graces. Then he loved me. I could do no wrong. And then I think, like when I got divorced, I think it broke his heart more than it broke my heart at that point. He was very upset by it. And, well, my first divorce was a bad one anyway, but that's another story I don't want to get into. Let's not get into that. But Mr. Albert he was a very good guy, and I always loved him. He was a good dude. It was terrible when he died, and I mean, but we all gotta come to an end sometime. Unfortunately, it's just part of life. A lot of people are gone, that I know. So,
Yeah.
even within in my thing. I got Lance is gone, Lance Carter, Decolator's gone. I got a few people that are gone, they're completely gone now. not to mention, friends and, whatever other people, over time you tend to like, you see people dropping. It's just a shame. That's why I wrote that song, I'm Dying Here, because it's just like, it is, I wanted a song that was poppy, A poppy, B like, pretty catchy, on top of it. And then, but also being very funny and being very depressing at the same time. Because it's funny. I mean, I hear that I'm dying here. Like when I hear the chorus, I start laughing because I think of Ratso Rizzo on the fucking going on that bus down in Florida. That's where I got the idea to do that. And it's the fact that it's like you're Florida. Everybody's, it's God's waiting room. They've always people call it God's waiting room. And there's a reason. Believe me, I should see some of the stiffs I see walking around down here. The heat doesn't help either. It makes everybody fucking like walk even slower.
Right.
For me, it's like I have a hard time with that pace. You have people that either go like 20 miles an hour or go 80 miles an hour and tailgate you. So you don't have a choice because you got all these jerk offs who think they're in the Indianapolis 500, or whatever. It's crazy. You got people riding motorcycles, no helmet. It's like you really are dumb. So yeah, I mean, so the mortality rate and all, yeah, I wrote that one. So
Well, Doug, it's been awesome going through all this history with you. I appreciate the time. Like I said, I've been a big fan of Bad Karma in particular.
that makes me feel really good because we just don't get enough love, man. You know what I mean? And for me, that says a lot because I think people always kind of glossed over it for me. You know what I mean? And when Pleased Youth was done, I mean, this wasn't Pleased Youth. It wasn't anything to do with that. And Decalator had a lot to do with the Pleased Youth identity, and this was more to do with me. And I learned how to write songs with that. So for me, that's really, it makes me feel good that you like Bad Karma. That I appreciate. Um, yeah, I mean, it's like I thank you for letting me do this because to be honest with you, I've done a lot of interviews, and I've never people can't see me actually saying what I'm saying, and you gave me the forum to come here and do that. The only other one I did like this was my buddy uh, my buddy Dave Blumenthal.
Hmm.
He did a series of podcasts, and I did one with him too. But I think we just recorded that one. It wasn't like you couldn't see me actually sitting here with you. So that was cool though. And this is great because I got to cover everything. And this is the most comprehensive interview I've ever done. So that
Great.
I really appreciate. And I'm really happy about that. And I thank you for giving me the chance.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. Really happy that you came on, gave me so much time. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to people from the eras in Jersey before I came up. Um, I love the state. I love the musical history there. So to add one more story, one more person to the mix, it's always a great thing. So I thank you for giving me so much time.
Again, thank you, man. It's like I said, it's the most comprehensive one I've done, and we spent 2.5 hours, so that's good. It's a good
Yeah,
one. I thought it might take longer just because I had so much stuff, but that's cool. It worked out, and I even got to talk about the chord a little bit too, which is good.
yeah, absolutely. And in the video description, I'll put links for Bad Karma. I'll talk to you offline to get some other stuff in there. But
Sure.
for the viewer who's new to Doug's music, there'll be plenty of stuff to check out in the links. I would encourage you to do so. And when the new stuff comes out with, the Slugger project, definitely give that your support because I've heard some of it. It's fucking awesome. So be on the lookout for that too.
Thank you for that too, man, because that's something that's real important to me right now. And it's something I put my heart and soul into. And not that I don't do that anytime. I mean, music is really it's about being a catharsis, getting everything out, you know what I mean? Getting all your, if I didn't play music, I really would have a hard time. So
Yeah.
being able to play and even doing it like this, I mean, it's not the way I would normally do it, but I'm learning something new, and it's like I've gotten better at it as I've gone along, and I'm sure as I go along, I'll probably advance to other stuff. So, and no, thanks for giving me the opportunity to appreciate it.
My pleasure. We'll talk again soon, man.
You got it, Joel. Thank you.
Take care.